Okay, so we start our second lecture talking about joint. Right now we're talking about joint quantization night spectrum frequency. So because we already understand if we are consider interframe correlation, so that one can make your coding efficiency, improve your coding efficiency. So another one they call the joint quantization night spectrum pair. It's not just consider one vector. We are consider multiple vector is possible. So because if we are consider like a joint multiple stage vector, this one is moving average multiple stage vector quantization. If we are consider combine three vector together or whatever, so you can see the performance. What's the difference here? So the performance joint multiple stage, they using the like this table. So they are using like a low bitrate coder, try to make good use of the night spectrum pair. So you can see per 60 millisecond number of bit. So they are complexity moving averaging. So here what they did. So number of bit per second. So like this one, we consider what they try to say here, if we have a speech frame like here, so we are partition like a three frame. So we have a three speech frame. So each speech frame will have a night spectrum frequency, the vector. So we have a three night spectrum frequency. So we are using the moving averaging multiple stage vector quantization. So this one will be night spectrum frequency 1 and night spectrum frequency 2, night spectrum frequency 3. They are sequential. Come in. So right now what you get an index. So you have an index first one, index 1, index 2, index 3. So you have an index 3. So this one is we are consider three night spectrum vector sequential come in, and then we get a 3 index. So for each index here, so you can see this table. From this table, what you see here, for they are 15 bit and 15 bit and 15 bit, and also the other choice is 18 bit, 18 bit and 18 bit. So total, if we are consider 3 speech frame, so each speech frame is around 20 millisecond. Here this one is 20 millisecond, 20 millisecond. So total 6 millisecond. Why the total bit encoding bit is 45, and this one is 54 bit. However, if we are consider become the meta join together, we are called a joint quantization. We are consider three vector together. So we have a 3 vector together to do the quantization. They call this one is a JQ multiple stage vector quantization. So what you see, you will be seeing 3 vector together. So your vector dimension will be like a 30 vector, 30 component inside there. So in the past here, the vector dimension is 10 each vector. This one, each covector, so is including 10 element, 10 component. So this one each each vector because they come each covector so each covector contains 30 component. So in this case, so because we are quantized together, during our quantization, we are combined 3 together become a meta vector. So during the quantization, they consider some correlation because they are not neighboring friend correlation already considered. But for multiple stage, they using the moving average. But during quantization, they are directly quantized, consider more vector together. So intercorrelation, they are also considered together. So according to this kind of multiple stages, so they are assigned their multiple stations. Their stage is bigger, so their stage big allocation. So you can see this one the stage only 3 stage. This one they using the A stage. So A stage here. So you can see try A stage here. So this one you can see the total. Also they using MBAS, the same MBAS. So complexity sometimes this one join vector because your vector dimension is higher, so complexity will be higher. So memory sometimes because your covector become the bigger, so the memory size take more. However, you can see the performance. So spectrum distortion, well, this one is minimized. And all-nighter, sometimes, well, this one is close to 54. And all-nighter 4 dB, there's no 4 dB. So look like you pay a lot of computation complexity. The joint quantization, they are quantized, is not combined vector together. So they are blocking effect, only different meta, so become the meta vector. So the quantization, they are blocking effect. The blocking effect only occur the meta vector, but in traditional moving average multiple stage, so they are blocking effect neighboring night spectrum pair vector. However, they using a moving average, try to accommodate their interframe correlation, but the efficiency look like we are consider multiple vector together to do the quantization, can get a little bit good performance. You can see if we are using the joint multiple stage vector quantization, you are only using 44 bit, but the performance should be similar the total using the 54 bit multiple stage. So you can get this kind of result, give you some indication. Okay. Another one, they are trying to using the prediction. Because that one we did not using the moving average in joint quantization. If we are consider moving average prediction, so they can improve a little bit. So they say they can be improved a little bit, and also consider multiple order, so more order, so they can improve the performance a little bit, but the complexity become higher. So this one just give you idea. So we try to make your coding efficiency higher. Sometimes we try to minimize the blocking effect, or make a good use. You have an interframe correlation, so we can try to using your previous vector, decoding vector, to do the prediction. Depend on how many previous decoding vector you look into. So this one a little bit similar like ADPCM, adaptive differential quantizer. So, but right now we did not consider adaptive, we just consider differential quantizer. But differential quantizer sometimes have error propagation, so we are consider different way. Our prediction is based on residual vector. So that one will be limit to your more like an average, we call the moving average, the vector quantization. So that one sometimes make a good use your interframe. However, if we are consider multiple vector together to do the quantization, become multiple vector become the meta vector, become a bigger vector to do the quantization together. So sometimes they give the good performance, provide a good performance. Okay, another one we are consider some aliasing issue, because this one just show you if we are using the just join point according to table 512. So if we are consider a little bit moving average, so they are under the same condition, same configuration. So if we are including moving average, so little bit improve the performance. They can be do the little bit improve the performance. So another one, they call the aliasing. Why? Because if you are trying to think about nice spectrum pair, when we do nice spectrum pair, we are based on our speech frame. This one is based on your speech frame. So speech frame, based on speech frame, we are try to partition your waveform into many speech frame. For each speech frame, we generate nice spectrum frequency. This kind of approach is look like a sampling. Well, this kind of look like a sampling, like a nice spectrum frequency sample. So we are trying to do from the original speech signal waveform to do the nice spectrum frequency sampling their coefficient. Try to sample their coefficient. So we sampling their coefficient here is look like a, so you can see later on we will see what's the aliasing. So you can see we have a 10 here. They try to do some measurement. So they have some setup. So right now we are consider LPC 10, and then they are Hamming window 20 sample, 200 sample. So and also they are consider you get a nice spectrum frequency, each nice spectrum frequency. So over the time they will be taken fast Fourier transform to look like what would be happen. So each nice spectrum track, what's each nice spectrum track? What they try to do here, I show you. So we have a speech frame. We partition many speech frame. We do the Hamming window, and then we get a nice spectrum coefficient. So this one it could be A1, A2, A10. So this one is a nice spectrum coefficient 1, nice spectrum coefficient 2. So this one is a B1, B2 up to the B10. So nice spectrum frequency 3. So you have a C1, C2, and then C10. And then this one nice spectrum frequency N, maybe index N. So they could be, I'm not sure Z, whatever, Z1 or Z10. Okay, so for corresponding first coefficient and second coefficient, so this one is a time index. You know, so first one look like a time index. This one is almost like your time index. So you can see if we are consider whole of them, this one using the fast Fourier transform to see what's the signal inside there, what's the variation. So second coefficient we try to use in the fast Fourier transform to look into what's the second coefficient, their variation. So this one is your F1, F2, whatever. So this one they call F10. So you can see what the frequency. So this one is their 4,000 because we are considered up to the frequency 4,000. So you can see 4,000 hertz here. So you can see what the variation. So more like this one. So they have some high frequency variation here. So why they can get like this kind of figure? So this figure they are showing nice. They are trying to sample first frame and second frame. They are overlap. Just one sample difference. Just one sample difference. So because this one generate nice spectrum frequency 1. This one generate nice spectrum frequency 2. So right now here they are considered two neighbor speech frame. They are overlap almost 99%. Just one sample missing, and this one F1 sample here, and delete one sample here. So they delete one sample here. So neighboring speech frame will be only one sample different. So just one sample different. So your nice spectrum frequency, the sample rate for your nice spectrum frequency, your sampling rate nice spectrum frequency is 4 kilohertz. So you got it. So right now, in the past, you are trying to learn or be trained sampling theory, more like a sample original data. Right now, we are sample the data from your speech waveform, like a coefficient. It's not original data. It's from your original data, try to find out the represented coefficient. So this one we are sample. So you can see, because our signal try to become this one is 8 kilohertz sample. So this one should be sampling rate 8 kilohertz, because of our each sample is 8 kilohertz. So we only just only one sample different, neighboring speech frame just one sample different. So your sampling rate for your nice spectrum frequency 8 kilohertz. So you can generate many nice spectrum pair, and then corresponding first coefficient we use in FFT. So because our sample nice spectrum free coefficient is 8 kilohertz, so we are consider up to 4 kilohertz. But so you can see they have a lot of high frequency variation, but the value is very low. Corresponding low frequency is very low. So if we are looking to for low frequency, only 150 hertz. So you can see the information during the high frequency will become lower. So you can see here what you have here. They told you A below 25 hertz, what the total energy will be occupied 94.52, and B between 50 and 25 hertz, so occupy a frequency like this one. So you can see, if we are looking into their signal in frequency domain and see what kind of energy distribution they have. So So what we did, you can see here, they have, from the low frequency, you can see, because they try to enlarge. From this figure, it's not easy for you to catch the point, because they are 1 kilohertz, 1 kilohertz, 1000 hertz. But a low frequency, they have a high amplitude, because this dB is a log scale. So this one is very smaller compared to low frequency. If we are looking to a low frequency, what's the energy what they have? So you can see, if we are looking to the low frequency, the amplitude, below 25 hertz, what's the percentage they are energy occupy? 50 hertz and up to 100 hertz. So they try to give you some idea in this table. If you are consider 25 hertz, what's the 25 hertz? So A below 25 hertz, what's that? So if we are 25 hertz, so our sample, night frequency sample is 925 hertz. So it look like 1 second we have a 40 frame per second. Per second we have a 40 frame. So because we are sample per second, we sample per second we sample 25 times. So it's more like a 25 hertz. So 25 hertz. So if we are this, this one is a frequency. So we are 25 hertz. So inverse. So you can see they are 40 frames per second. 40 frames per second. So it look like a 40 frames per second is look like what you have. 40 frame. So it's like your speech frame is 25 millisecond. 25 millisecond. So if you're up to the 50, so each speech frame around the 25 millisecond. So you have a 25 become 10 millisecond. Our speech frame become 10 millisecond. So 1 second speech frame, what we have a 100 speech frame. So 100 speech frame. So per second we have a 100 speech frame. So look like our hertz is 100. So you can see if we are more frequency. So if you are consider our speech frame is bigger. So sometimes your high frequency, night spectrum frequency, high frequency information are lost. So I have to show you. So A indicate you have you have a 25. A indicate your frame size is 25 millisecond. So A frequency band indicate you have a per second you have a 40 frame. So 40 frame per second. 40 frame per second. So each frame is 25 millisecond. 25 millisecond per frame. And B boundary 50 hertz. So it look like what you have is like a 50 hertz. So it's like a 50 frame per second. So 50 is a 20 frame per second. 20 frame per second. Oh no, 50 hertz is a 50 frame per second. Sorry. So 20. This one is 25 frame. Sorry, is 25 frame per second. So you have 40 millisecond per frame. So if you have 50 hertz, you have a 50 frame per second. 50 frame per second. 50 frame per second. Sorry, 50 frame per second. So each frame is 20 millisecond. Each frame have 20 millisecond. If C boundary 100 megahertz, so you have a 100 frame per second. So around 10 millisecond per frame. what did they want to say? If you are speech friend bigger, we are 40 milliseconds to generate night spectrum frequency, night spectrum frequency 1, night spectrum frequency 2. What's your cover? You can see like up maxima 90, around the 95%, and your behavior. If you like this one, you're up to the B friend, up to the 50 hertz, So up to the 50 per second, you have a 50 friend to do the night spectrum frequency. So each friend, what you have? So each friend, 50 friend, so it will be 20 millisecond. So total you have per second you have 50 friends. So you generate night spectrum frequency 1, night spectrum frequency 2, night spectrum frequency 2. What they cover, the energy will be covered A and B. So they will be cover your information 94.52 plus 4.24. So it looks like your 20 millisecond can cover your energy up to the 97 or 98. If you are up to the C 100 hertz, so your speech frame become the smaller, become the 10 millisecond, Your speech frame become the 10 millisecond. So each 10 millisecond will get a night spectrum frequency. It looks like you cover information variation. So your time information, you can cover more energy. So right now they just tell you if you are what's the sample theory. In traditional, your sample theory is try to sample original data to come out. Another issue is sample theory. You can see we try to from one data speech frame, according speech frames to sample their parameter. It's not original data. It's one kind of model parameter. So that kind is also try to sample. So right now we are talking about how big of your speech frame. Maybe you are 40 millisecond or speech frame, or 20 millisecond, or 10 millisecond, or 5 millisecond. So you can see from the night spectrum pair, if you are consider the speech frame smaller, sometimes smaller, so you can cover more high energy information. So they just tell you. So you can see 5.13, they show the percentage energy from 3 different bands. They computed over 4 male and 4 female. So they alter the speaking 8 seconds from NTT. NTT speech database is a Nippon telecommunication, is from the Japan. So the band below 25 hertz corresponding. Oh, I make a wrong. It's 20 milliseconds. So 25 hertz is sampling series. So this one is 20 milliseconds. So 50 hertz around 10 seconds. So I forgot that one is double precision. So they will be sample series is your sample frequency is 2 times of your original data. So 50 hertz is corresponding 10 milliseconds. So you can see around 92% energy below 25 hertz, remain 8% energy, so become the night spectrum parameter. So they show you if you are trying to do some quantization, so you have to because you depend on your frame size, sometimes they have some everything over there, because night spectrum frequency, they also including some high frequency, but some high frequency, the volume is not so big. So if we are trying to make a good quantization, sometimes we can consider some pre-processing like a low-pass filter to remove the high frequency, so your night spectrum frequency, high frequency component can make your interprediction better. What they want to do here, because your night spectrum frequency, our interprediction will be using your neighboring correlation, but our night spectrum frequency is a subsample from your original waveform, but they still including some high frequency variation, depend on your how to sample it. Like your per second, you have a 20. Your sample like per second, you sample 20 frame per second, 20 frame per second. So you sample like this one, so you cover. So you sample 20 hertz, 21, so you cover to 10 hertz. So you sample 100 frames per second, so you'll be cover 50 hertz. So 50 hertz. So you sample 100 frames per second. If you are per second sample 100 frames, so they will be cover 50 up to 50 hertz. So because according sample theory, sorry about that, I didn't pay attention. So sample theory. So you can see if we are small speech frame, the high frequency energy will be cover your night spectrum frequency. So however, they still have some high frequency. If we are trying to make an interprediction better, sometimes because they have everything. So we have to think about if we are pre-processing, have some low-pass filter can make your interprediction better. So they say, well, if we are give them some like a low-pass filter here, like your textbook, so you can send can be increased, or you increase the analysis window length with overlapping. So sometimes you increase the sample increase your window size will be make your sample frequency lower, and then you have a high frequency everything will become out more. So you have to think about do some low pass filter and make sure your interprediction can do the good job. So if we are consider first coefficient, f is original first coefficient, the frequency domain. If we are using a low pass filter, and then you can see during your quantization you can get a better performance. So low pass filter in your moving average. So if we are consider we have a because we are using the moving average quantization. So if we are trying to using a low pass filter, so sometimes can make your coding efficiency better. So right now they show some prediction gain. So they define prediction gain. They have a S0, S minima. So like this equation here. Okay, so this one they show you if you on night spectrum frequency we like a 5 millisecond we have a high sampling rate. So the everything effect will be lower. So you can see this one prediction parameter. So the neighboring night spectrum pair, they have high correlation. So if we are using the original one, F, one is original one, the other after the low pass, so their correlation will be higher, and also your residual variance become the lower because you are using the low pass filter. So the residual night spectrum pair so the variation will become lower, and also correlation will be higher. So if we are consider like a bigger speech frame, so the everything will be come out. So you can see your low pass will be contribute better performance. And then if you are using the bigger speech frame, so if you have a low pass filter before you during your quantization, so you can see the prediction parameter coefficient neighboring frame have a higher correlation. 30 frames, so you can see the prediction parameter become lower. So like 47. So this one is sometimes show you if we are consider like a small speech frame, so they including high frequency energy over there, so they with low pass and high. If we have a low pass filter and no, so you can see prediction gain with G. So this one you can see the difference is around 7. This one 10 milliseconds could be around the 7 or 6. So you can see here become bigger. So so the prediction gain become better. So they have a 29 because they are 40 milliseconds. 40 millisecond speech frame is a 40 millisecond. So our night spectrum pair, they have some everything, like a high frequency everything. During you do the interprediction, sometimes they cannot give the good performance. If we are using some low pass filter before we do the quantization, so you can see the prediction can become the better. So you can see here, this one deviation around the 17. This one deviation also close 17. This one deviation become like a 7, become the 7. This one around the 7 and 6. So you can see it's around the 7. So this one just show you. So the prediction gain is a nice spectrum prediction variation and minimal variation. So they try to bigger one and small one variation, because quantization we try to minimize their variation, so make a good use of your quantization after the low pass filter. So what do they want to say here? They want to say because you are trying to get the nice spectrum pair based on speech frame, most of them they have a like a sample theory issue there, everything. So you have to see if you are trying to using consider like a multiple stage with quantization with a low pass filter. So because you have a low pass filter, so neighboring frame, neighboring night spectral pair residue, their correlation become higher. In the past, what we say multiple stage is around 0.4, but you have a low pass filter, so they can be improved the correlation become 0.5. So average spectrum distortion, they will be like this one. So you can see we have a low pass filter, the spectrum distortion become lower. Outlier sometimes they also improve. So they give you idea if you have a nice spectrum pair, you have depend on your speech frame. If you consider low pass filter can improve the performance. So another one is a bit allocation. So they try to show you different version. So this one we are moving average multiple stage vector quantization. So if we are bit rate improve, so we can give more bit rate for each stage. For each stage codebook vector, so you can see they try to see what's the performance they get. So you can see this one without low pass filter, this one with a low pass filter. So you can see if we try to see the same performance, so they will be improved like a too big. around 2 bit, 1.1 bit, but so almost 1.5 bit here, around the more than 1 bit advantage. So they just show you if we are trying to using low pass filter, they will be see well. They could be improve more than 1 bit advantage for your coding efficiency. Sometimes outlier would be clear contribution, very clear contribution. So you can see if we are consider 4 dB outlier, so you can see with low pass filter during the coding, the performance is better. So this one is try critical. So sometime in the past you didn't know, you just sample series consider original data. But right now I show you because sample series is we call the sample series. Sometimes we from the original waveform try to abstract their some parameter, and then how frequency you try to sample your parameter. So night spectrum frequency we can see. So in the beginning they are considered your waveform. So neighboring night spectrum pair, neighboring speech frame, they are overlap. Only one sample different. So your night spectrum frequency sampling rate becomes 8 kHz. According 8 kHz, you can see you have a same like a first one coefficient, second one coefficient. You can use an FFT. So you can see their energy distribution. Based on that, you can see what we using like a 25 Hertz and 50 Hertz and 100 Hertz. So that one related to your speech frame. So most energy is located low frequency. However, we still have some high frequency component. So if your speech frame is bigger, so your everything night spectrum pair everything will be higher. So we have to apply some low pass filter, make sure remove the everything, and make your interprediction become a better performance. Because from the sample series, you are too detailed variation, that because your sample parameter frequency is lower, but that kind of variation did not include it. But that one become your everything, make your data sound noise. That one will be affected. You are also degrade your quantization efficiency. So you have to pay attention to that. So they're talking about if you are night spectrum pair, we try to get the data from speech frame. This depend on how many night spectrum pair per second you sample the night spectrum pair vector, number of night spectrum pair vector. That one is another from the sample series. It's like a sample, you try to sample night spectrum pair from your speech frame. So our speech frame become bigger, so you sometimes high frequency, night spectrum frequency, their high frequency variation, we did not keep it. So we cannot get it. But that one will be cause your everything problem. So we have to using some low pass filter to do the pre-processing and then make your interframe prediction, like a moving average prediction, become a better performance. So it's the main idea like this one. Okay, I use in the Mandarin repeat what we talking about in this section. OK， 在这一节呢，它实际上主要一开始它在做一些效能的比较。第一个呢，第一个主要的就是 join vector 的 quantization join vector quantization， 因为我们前面看到 moving average 的 performance 有改善，也就是说把相邻的有点像 ADPCN 去 differential 把相邻的那 nice spectrum frequency 呢做预估相减，只 coding 它的差异，也实际上把原来的动态范围变异性缩小了。那我这样的 coding 呢，实际上呢效果变好。那实际上也就是考虑 interframe。那你有时候可以考虑一个前面的向量，或前面的剩余向量 residual 的 nice spectrum pair 一个或两个或多个，就看你的 order。就好比我们的 ADPCN 可以是往前看多少个，去做现在的 sample 的预估。那另外一个思维呢，就是说，你每个 nice spectrum pair 是不是可以形成一个 Markov？ 我如果一次看3个 vector 一起量化，那是不是可以把每一个 vector 之间的那个 interconnection 也考虑在量化里面？以前我们曾说过 vector quantization better than scalar quantization， 因为它把 blocking effect 减少了虽然它的 blocking effect 是发生在 vector 之间，现在我又把 vector 做组合所形成的 join， 它结果告诉你说，实际上好像它是有改善，有 improve performance， 等效你用44B 可以接近54B 的效果，这当然是有很好的好处。那但它的复杂度也变大了。那另外你也可以把原来的 moving average 也可以用到 Markov， 但是呢，如果你的音框太大的话，就实际上用这种方法形成 meta frame 的话，通常音框不会太大，大概都小于20或是大概10 millisecond 一个音框，或是那如果太大30 millisecond 一个音框，它的 meta 的 vector 就是相对就包含的资讯太多反而不好，所以有时候大概都会考虑在10 millisecond 小的音框在做这种 meta vector。那另外一个 nice spectrum frequency 呢，以前呢我们是以一个音框一个音框去取 data， 一个音框一个音框去取 data 去 sample， 但是呢问题来了，就是说我取这些参数，但是会有一个问题是取这些参数，你原先以前的 sample series 是从原始 data 去 sample 这些 data 出来，但是呢现阶段如果我们从取样这个参数，音框里面取样参数，它也是某种程度的取样的一个概念。那它的取样概念的基本精神是，我一个音框我是取多少个 nice spectrum vector。他做了一个实验，我把一个音框假设是20 millisecond， 那但是这个音框跟下一个音框它有几乎很多的 overlap， 只差一个 sample， 那所以说我的 nice spectrum pair 的 sampling rate 呢因为每次音框只差一个 sample， 往右移一个 sample，那这时候我的 nice spectrum pair 就是 8K 赫兹，它借由这个 8K 赫兹的取样，它就可以去算出每一个系数第一个系数、第二个系数，所有 vector 的系数，它的那个 FFT 频率的变化，那它会发觉它有一些高频的现象。那蛮重要的就是说，你会发觉它的能量呢是集中在低频，所以说就是刚才那个 table。这个 table， 所以能量会集中在低频。但是呢，如果我的音框，比如说它是25赫兹的话，相对是20 millisecond， 50赫兹是到10 millisecond， 所以你用的音框20 millisecond 的时候，你的 nice spectrum pair 只是 cover 到95左右，95、96。那如果你用了10 millisecond， 你就是把 A、B 这两个 band就加进来了，所以说你漏掉的高频讯号就变少。那因为你要做 interframe prediction， 所以说如果你有这些高频的 areas， 因为你还是音框 base， 你不可能用很高的frame rate、很高的 sample nice spectrum pair 来做，因为你这资料量变大。那你为了你的压缩效果好，那你可能要把你的高频的杂讯拿掉，所以说就会提出一个类似一个 low pass filter。那如果你 apply low pass filter， 你会发觉 你的整体的 coding 的效果变好了，因为你用了 low pass filter，你相邻的 residue 的 prediction correlation 就会变高，好，所以说相邻的 prediction coefficient 就可以变高，所以说在你的 moving average 的时候，你可以说有用 low pass 的话，你的 prediction factor 会高一点，但你低音框的时候，它的 correlation 会高，高音框的时候，因为它跳的比较多，相似性就变少，所以说相对的就会 correlation 会系数就会变低，30 millisecond correlation 的相关系数就会变低。那另外一个呢，他就开始说，如果我有做 low pass 跟没做 low pass， 那我在 coding 的 efficiency 上会有什么差别？哈，那当然有做 low pass 的时候效果会好，哈，有做 low pass 的时候效果会好。那主要的精神大概是这样。那所以说最后呢，他也看，到底他改善了多少个 bit？ 有做 low pass 跟 high pass， 大概可以改善接近1个 bit， 1.5 bit 左右，哈，效率有改善。同样的给 bit rate， 那 perform 如果同一个相同 perform 去看下去，大概它有改善1点多 bit 的一个效果，啊，那所以说它实际上这边的精神，记得我们某种程度night spectrum frequency 也实际上就是量化。Okay, so this chapter we are talking about a lot of night spectrum pair quantization. So in the beginning we talking about because night LPC coefficient is an open model like a parameter like a polynomial equation coefficient is not a solution like their pole. So during the quantization, we have to know they are stable. So first issue, we transfer to the PACO. So PACO can, during the quantization, we know they are stable or not. However, but the PACO did not consider they are quantized, but they do not have interference correlation. So later on, we are try to build up the source filter model. The PACO is like we define your vocal tract become main P section. So order 10, we are define your vocal tract become the 10 cross section. For each cross section is not a perfect match. So PACO coefficient is like a refraction coefficient. So based on this refraction coefficient, they should be below than 1. So according to this constraint, we can come out your P, the summation. So you have an A transfer function and reverse transfer function B, and according your gratis open and close, we can come out the sum and differential equation like a P of Z and Q of Z. So based on P of Z and Q of Z, we find out their solution is distributed on the unit circle. They are alternative between the P and Q. So they have based on they have phase angle because their solution is conjugate solution. So we are just encoding their phase angle. So based on the phase angle, so we can recover back original night spectrum frequency. So later on we're talking about night spectrum frequency pair. So night spectrum frequency pair is like a P of Z, Q of Z solution. So they are phase angle solution. However, they have some order from the low frequency to high frequency, and also they have an intraframe correlation, they have an interframe correlation. So later on we think about how to do the quantization. In the textbook, they consider two approach. One approach they are using split vector quantization. The other one they are talking about multiple stage vector quantization. So in general, multiple stage vector quantization they cover split vector quantization. So the performance multiple stage vector quantization is better than split vector quantization because they reduce partition original vector become the subvector, so they introduce the blocking effect between the subvector. So that one performance maybe is not good. So multiple stage vector quantization can provide a good performance. So that we also consider like an interframe quantization. So we are talking about differential quantization or moving average. Differential quantizer, they have an error propagation issue. So we are consider like a average quantization. The main idea is based on decoder. One is based on decoding night spectrum frequency multiplied by prediction coefficient, maybe 0.8, and then try to subtract the next input vector become a residual vector. Another one, moving average, they are based on a residual vector, decoding residual vector multiplied by a prediction coefficient to become the prediction night spectrum pair to subtract it from the current input night spectrum pair vector. So you can see this one, because based on residual vector, the correlation would be a little bit lower than differential pair. So original differential pair, because we are based on residual. And later on, we are talking about because you can see prediction, interframe prediction, sometimes can improve the performance. If we are consider joint vector, consider multiple vector quantization together, so they also improve the performance. And then later on, moving average can also apply in the joint multiple stage vector quantization, can be further improve the performance a little bit, but however the complexity become higher. The other issue, we are consider night spectrum pair. So because we are trying to per second, because night spectrum pair in the original we're talking about from speech frame. So how many speech frame in 1 second? So sometimes you can see night spectrum pair is look like we sample from your original data some parameter. So if we are sample more, like 1 second, we are sample more night spectrum pair, is like we sample more, consider their time variation. We can keep track the night spectrum pair time variation. However, if we are look into their time variation, so sometimes if we are 20 milliseconds, we only cover the energy around the 95%. So if we are consider 10 milliseconds per one, so 10 milliseconds would be generate one night spectrum pair. They could be improve the energy around 97 up to 98%. So you still have a little bit high frequency energy aliasing. So that kind of noise. So they in textbook recommend you we can use in some low pass filter after you generate night spectrum pair. So after you have a low pass filter, so you can do the interprediction. Moving average, you can improve the performance. So improve around the 1 bit or 1.5 bit performance improve. So you can see that one show you some mechanism here in this textbook here. So you can see in textbook we are go back to the textbook. So you can see accurate spectrum representation sometimes is crucial. So for low bit rate. So because nice LPC they have a 10 coefficient. We try to think about how to make the coding more efficiency. So you can see we are make a lot of effort to generate another domain. We are not direct quantize the coefficient, LPC coefficient. We are generate the other domain called the night spectrum frequency. So we are quantize under that kind of domain to get a good performance. So in this chapter we talking about, so one spatial issue maybe you didn't look face this kind of issue. So it's an anti-aliasing filter because we are using night spectrum pair. Night spectrum frequency is like a sample from your speech friend. It's more like a little bit sample series. So we can see how to apply because they from the sample series. So you have a high frequency aliasing because our speech friend is bigger. It's not a small speech friend. So our night spectrum frequency, they have a time variation. We didn't keep track their time variation sometime. So we are trying to remove that high frequency time variation. So make your interprediction become the better performance. So main idea like this one. Okay. So next chapter is a bit easy. That one is try to talking about. So top one is the top issue is like chapter 5 and chapter 4. Right now could be a little bit simple. This chapter they talking about pitch estimation and voice on voice classification. So that one they talk to you how to do the pitch prediction. So first one, simple one, pitch estimation method. They are based on time domain. So time domain, the pitch prediction, they are based on like a autocorrelation or like a average magnitude difference function. So we are trying to ship your waveform for one speech frame. So if we are trying to find the pitch, in the past we talking about how to find the pitch. They are based on what we find the pitch. They're based on autocorrelation. So right now we are looking to there are different approach to find the pitch. So first one is very simple. So they try to, for example, so this one is our speech frame. So they try to, this speech frame is move to front, try to do the waveform mapping. So they try to do the waveform mapping. So this speech frame try to move further from our 18 point, 16 point to move to this one from the 16 point move to the 116 sample. So they will be searched like a human being pitch area. So they will be searched, try to do the mapping, and then each sample mapping each sample. So you can see, try to make it smaller. Okay, so you can see here. So this one is original speech frame. So they try to move the one, try to search your pitch. So you can see this is winner. But however, sometimes they have the other one. So you have to be careful. This one is our pitch. So pitch is around 60. So however, if you are 120, so this one is a double pitch. Sometimes in the time domain, for example, in time domain, like a simple one, sine wave. So sine wave here. So you move the t, you can get a best match, and you move the 2t, sometimes you also can get the best match. So you can see if this one is in time domain, we try to do the moving, try to do the mapping match then the vector. So this one is a double prediction, double pitch, double tau. This one is t, this one is 2t. So you have to avoid 2t come out. So another one, so the average moving differential of frequency, they have some issue here. So time domain, sometimes they have a issue here. So because sometimes they will be because it's not find a pitch, maybe they find a double pitch. So another one is try to using the autocorrelation. So this one is try to using mean square error. The previous one is absolute value. So you can see if we are also we consider the beta scaling vector, because sometimes your voice have some energy variation. So we have to think about, is possible or maybe give some beta up there. So in the past, some literature they talking about, they try to find out what's the k. Is k equal 1 is like an absolute value, k equal 2 is similar like a autocorrelation, k equals 3. So depend on they find out could be 2 is good enough. 2 is good enough. So this one just show you if we are using the normalized autocorrelation. So you can see this one is a pitch and this one you are double pitch. So you have to be careful for that. So normalized autocorrelation. So if we are consider, so we have to minimize our second pitch here. So you double pitch here. So sometime in the previous lecture we already derived this equation. So we are trying to search from tau 18 to 100, from 16 to 160. So we have tried to find, this one is only one tap because only one tap. So this one is our normalized. Try to find normalized energy become the bigger is winner. So what we this equation derivation we talking about before, and also you can take the absolute value, take the square out. So this one could be another normalized one. So another one, they are using harmonic peak detection. Why? Because from frequency domain, that one is from time domain. So from frequency domain, so you can see this one is our from frequency domain. You can see here they are harmonic. So maybe we can using the comb filter, like a comb filter. Try to, if you are comb filter, mapping your envelope shape, mapping to your peak point. Sorry, make your peak point. So your comb filter make your peak point. So you can see make your peak point. So they try to see the original frequency domain, your speech frame to the frequency domain. You have a spectrum. So you're using the comb filter like this one. So they can, so you have a original waveform to the spectrum. So we have a comb filter according different omega 0. Try to make sure you can catch the peak point. So that one you can get a good performance. What do they want to say here? So they try, because your frequency domain is like some harmonic. This harmonic in time domain is pitch. So I give you the comb filter. So we adjust the comb filter like a omega 0. So from different omega 0, so sometimes we can use in the bigger one. Sometimes we can use in different omega 0, different omega 0. Try to use it, look like the comb. This one look like your comb filter. So we call this one is a comb filter. So spectrum similarity. So this one is a comb filter. They try to correlation. Another one is based on we try to using A could be a scalar vector. We can use in the synthesized spectrum. And try to see synthesized spectrum and correlation original signal not. So you can see a different way try to find time domain and frequency domain. So another one is try to use in the synthesize. So synthesize is based on how to define your envelope shape. So one is a comb filter. We adjust this omega 0. So they could be different omega 0 So different omega 0, different omega 0, different omega 0. So they try to using this comb filter mapping. If we are select the right omega 0, so this comb filter will be close to their peak point, so you can get the value bigger. But the best, sometimes you'll be find out the double omega 0. Once you find out double frequency, you'll be look like you find a half of pitch. In frequency domain, in time domain, your pitch will be double pitch. In frequency domain, you'll be find your pitch become a half pitch sometimes because in spectrum domain you try to find matching your original waveform. One, you using the comb filter. Another one, we can using some harmonic shape. We define harmonic shape, define how many omega 0. So, and then maybe you have a many harmonic, maybe you have a bigger harmonic. So based on different harmonic bandwidth, so you are trying to multiply your amplitude and synthesize another according your amplitude, synthesize another waveform. According this one, they synthesize another waveform. So they try to these two waveform will be do the mapping to see which one is more closely, which one will be more closely. So you can see they're using the synthesize, and according to your bandwidth, try to do the synthesize. According omega 0, so you can go back to double check your amplitude. So this one is original waveform. According your bandwidth, try to model according that kind of bandwidth, what kind of amplitude. So this amplitude will be multiplied by your basis, envelope basis. So it will be synthesized original waveform. This waveform, based on this kind of fundamental frequency, try to do the simulation. So sometimes you'll be see which omega 0 will be get the minimal distortion. So they try to using this. Another one, you also can using the autocorrelation to do the time domain because they are harmonic. So we can also move your spectrum waveform to do the autocorrelation. Okay, so I'll be talking about next week. So this chapter sometimes is a little bit easy according how to find the pitch. One is from the time domain, the other one is from frequency domain. But in the standard, they try to minimize the overhead. Sometimes in time domain they are doing the pitch prediction. If you are coding with the frequency domain, sometimes they can do in frequency domain to find the pitch. So they're talking about a lot of pitch prediction from different way and see what would be happen. So, and later on, after pitch prediction, another one, they are talking about detect the voice on voice, detect the voice on voice. So they propose a couple around the 10 methods to detect the waveform voice on voice. And then next chapter 7, I only cover little bit and maybe couple section talking about how to do the excitation. That one is a critical one for your final because we have a LPC, short-term prediction. We know how to quantization. Pitch prediction, sometimes we are talking about previous chapter, and later on next week we will be looking to in time domain and frequency domain how to do the pitch prediction. And then residual signal, after pitch residual signal, we are using the Copu excitation or different like a different way, like a White Gaussian model it, and depend on how to model the final residual pitch signal. So hope that so become your final model for speech coding. So next week I will be talking about a little bit in pitch and also on voice detection, and later on will be highlight excitation. Excitation will be straightforward and easy in textbook because they are not taking too much effort talking about excitation. So our final exam will be covered around the chapter 7, but it's not whole chapter 7, just cover some of them in the beginning 2 or 3 section. That's it. So I using the Mandarin repeat what I say here. OK， 前面在讲 pitch 的时候，是一个是时域轴，一个是频率轴。时域轴我们在找 pitch 最笨的方法就是移位，那移位去算 correlation， 那可以是绝对值的 correlation 或是平方的 correlation 因为你相减有正有负，那为算这个时候通常都是取绝对值。那频率轴呢，因为原始的 waveform 到频率轴变成是 harmonic 的 waveform。那你可以用像梳子的这样去配对，那你调不同的间距，这个间距都是固定的，就是 omega zero。如果刚好都接近都是破风的话，你调的那个 omega zero 会是最大值。另外一个呢是用合成方式，合成方式就是你建构了很多 harmonic 的讯号，那调整不同的 harmonic 的频率宽度，然后去针对这个 harmonic， 你可能第一个频段是在哪里，去算出原始讯号的 amplitude 平均 amplitude， 再乘上这个去做合成讯号，那去看这两个讯号的相似度。那既然你是在频率轴是有 harmonic 现象，如果我已经去了 LPC 的话，它的讯号会比较没有 envelope shape。那这时候我可不可以用 auto correlation 去移位去算相似度也是可以。那频率轴呢，通常你因为在做配对的时候，有时候会找到2倍频率，2倍频率就是半周期。那时域轴呢，因为你有可能找到1个周期或2个周期，时域轴比较会限到找到2倍周期，所以说这2个是互补。所以之后呢，课本会提出把时域轴跟频率轴2个互补来做应用，实际上可以改善你的 pitch prediction。那真正 code 呢，并不会用那么复杂它可能用的是比较单纯简单一点。Okay, so later on next week, I will be trying to finish the chapter 6 and also chapter 7 little bit. In case I cannot finish it in our lecture time, I'll be extending, could be 30 minutes or 1 hour, to try to cover whole section. And so I ask you, because that's chapter 7 and chapter 7 and chapter 8, there's no complicated algorithm. So you have to be maybe if you are available, try to pass through the chapter 5, chapter 4. That one a little bit tough up there because they have a modeling. They have a how to generate model. They have a lot of physical meaning up there. And chapter 6 and chapter 7, a little bit easy, is straightforward. Sometimes it's straightforward to get that kind of model and data. So they try to find the pitch, they try to find the excitation, they further to define it. Okay, so I stop here and talk to you next week. Do not forget, we have final exam during our school final exam week. And also we have a final report for your homework too. Try to become a team, try to select the pair. It's easy for you to do the implementation. If you have any question or any problem, try to reach TA regarding your test program. Your testing waveform, speech waveform or audio waveform. And also if you have any problem, you can send me an email. Okay, so I stop here and talk to you next week. Okay, bye bye.